This works, folks, is Paul and I really never know who's going to be on the show. We massively delegate authority. I figured out years ago it's the only way to do it. And what I do, the team of bookers we have,
Yep.
I don't know who's going to call me, but usually with a beverage of my choice in my hand, I get a call like at 7 p.m.
Sure.
And about 2 weeks ago, I said, could you get Bill Lee on from Milken? And it went through the booking combine we have here.
Yep.
And Eric delivered in spades. Joining us now, William Lee, Chief Economist, Milken Institute. Bill, this could be a 3-hour conversation. Let's cut it short. What do Trump tariffs mean for Beijing?
Oh, it's going to mean a change of life from where it was for the last 4 years. One of the things we have to remember, Tom, is that the Make America Great objective has really one ultimate objective: maximize domestic employment and income. Right? That is the feature that we have to keep in mind, and Beijing really realizes that. Up until now, President Biden has been emphasizing getting everybody together in trade pacts, multilateral trade pacts. He's had some difficulties negotiating them. But Donald Trump is a deal maker, and he goes for not only bilateral deals with countries, he goes for bilateral deals with companies. So I think Beijing is preparing itself for a whole bunch of company-specific deals, sector-specific deals, and I think that gives him flexibility. You can really tailor, that same industry. You can negotiate with Korea, and you can negotiate with Taiwan on semiconductors, and have two different deals that try to benefit both. So I just came back from a meeting in South Korea not so long ago, and they were really excited about having more and more U.S.-China trade tensions because they trade with both sides.
Okay,
and these bilateral deals will let them do that.
You're on the IMF desk as you were for years. What about magnitude? Lighthizer and Trump want magnitude large tariffs. The Treasury Secretary designate does not. Does it make a difference if Bill Lee gets a marginal or a massive tariff regime?
Well, Tom, as you know, as a deal maker, the one thing you never negotiate is your final position. And right now, the opening round is massive prohibitive tariffs. In fact, we had heard him say, if it takes 100%, great. If it takes 200%, I'm going to put them in. But that's the negotiating opening ploy. And what the objective, as I said before, is to restructure trade routes, restructure trade pacts, and restructure the U.S. manufacturing base in a way that replicates more supply chains domestically and friendshoring. And these tariffs are one way of negotiating that. Remember, Tom, restructuring America is both a Democratic and Republican objective, right, to maximize that domestic income and employment. And I think President Trump is going to be using trade policy as a tool. As you know, Tom, I come from the tradition of Bob Mundell and Carlos Rodriguez and Guillermo Calvo, where in a distorted world, and Kelvin Lancaster's world of the second best, where you don't have free trade, putting on tariffs or renegotiating industrial policy can make countries better off because we come in a distorted world where there is no free trade. There is no perfect competition.
So where is the concept of free trade? Was it ever a reality, and is it now gone for the foreseeable future?
If you go back to the days of Alexander Hamilton, right, he already put the stake in the heart of free trade when he said, we've got to build up U.S. industries. We cannot depend on the U.K. for manufactured goods. That alone, I think, goes to show that we never had that world of free trade. It was only taught by people like me when in international economics and undergrads to give you a baseline model for where it is that we could drive for. But I think the minute you hit graduate school, you learn about the world of the second best, where in a world of distortions, adding on a distortion can actually make the world better off than before. And I think Donald Trump has been saying that all along, and President Biden has been on too. The CHIPS Act and the subsidies that we've been giving to build plants in Arizona for TSMC to come here was the lesson that we learned from COVID, that we cannot depend on one source for supply chains. My former boss, Jane Fraser said at a Milken meeting, the problem with ESG is that we're missing some S's. We need some stability and safety and soundness to our supply chains. And I think that's the heart of the message that President Trump is also trying to emphasize.
How valid is the argument that tariffs are inflationary on the U.S. consumer?
Well, Paul, I guess I hate to be the econ teacher again, but a tariff, even with retaliations, a stepwise increase in price levels. Right? In order to get inflation, we need continuous increases in the price level. And so we can have higher prices, but not higher inflation due to tariffs, unless we have repeated rounds of retaliation.
Dr. Lee, and I'm going to get a little nerdy here, folks. The people that invented this, again out of Columbia, was Professor Barrow, and a guy named Xavier Saleh Martin, who wore the bright, that's where Dan Ives got the sport coat thing going, is the sport coats of Saleh Martin. And their work is that in America, the people hammered by trade converge towards where the better part of America is. Now, we have a Trump of grievance, a Trump of so many people in America have missed the boat on free trade. Is that academics, Bill Lee, still in place, or is it a new regime after Barrow, Saleh Martin?
I think we combine both of those elements, because one thing that we also have to remember is there's technological change. And shaping technological change is one way of converging trade theory and growth theory. Technology gives us the opportunity to produce, as Mike Milken once told me, Bill, it's cheaper to produce sneakers in Atlanta than it is in China if you have the right technology in place. And so I think one of the things that we're going to see is the use of technology to drive a lot of the industrial policy that both President Biden and President Trump want to do, which is to say reshape the supply routes, don't depend on single sources, where their efficiency comes at a cost, and at a cost not just to the U.S., but to Europe as well. And I think Europe and the United States are trying to replicate these supply chains. If I were China, I'd be more afraid of the European tariffs that they're going to be putting in to protect their auto industries and their industrial base, their pharmaceuticals, than the United States tariffs. Because I think President Trump is much more willing to negotiate. You bring jobs to the United States, you invest in the United States, and you can circumvent our tariffs. If you don't do that and try to insist on competing with our strategic industries, you're going to be hit with not just 50, but 100% tariffs.
We went too long. Bill Lee, don't be a stranger. We'll do this again soon. With the Milken Institute, right to it with our news in New York City, John Tucker.
And investors believe the choice of Scott